Yay, there we are.
We're here.
Welcome to round 2 of And That's Why We Drink, minus Christine, but featuring our guest star, Eva.
Hello. Plus
Hello,
and
how are
minus.
you?
Minus and plus. We miss Christine.
In PEMDAS, it maybe cancels out or something. I'm not sure. But
PEMDAS.
I wanted to shout out, for those of you who are watching on YouTube, Eva has the coolest shirt I've ever seen. It's from, was it Dumb Good?
Yeah, it's from Dumb Good. It's All Real Monsters.
And
it's great.
Eva is wearing the All Real Monster shirt because we just had a conversation recently where I just came back. I don't know if just came back is the right thing to say in November, but I recently was in Denver, and there's a comic book place there called Vision Comics and Oddities. And in there they have, so by the way, also in Denver, fun fact, the country's biggest comic book shop is there, which is absolutely worth the hype. I saw 5 Captain America shields in there. There's a whole Star Wars area, a whole Star Trek area. It was the size of Walmart, Eva. It was insane.
Ooh.
There's also on more the outskirts of town, there was a really cool comic book called Vision Comics and Oddities. And some artist over there made this art statue installment of the All Real Monsters that it doesn't look like the cartoon version. It looks like if they were to come to life. And anyway, I showed it to Eva. We'll put the picture on Instagram, but they look like real. I don't know how to describe. What would you say, Eva? Real little monsters.
Yeah, it's almost obviously All Real Monsters is animated, and so they look like cartoons, but this looks like as if All Real Monsters was made of human parts. Is that the right way to put it?
It's like when people show what the Simpsons would look like in real life, and it's people with really stretched out yellow skin heads. It's very weird. It's
exactly that. Yeah,
it's very odd. I don't know how to process it. And also, what's the one with the eyeballs? That's why we talked about it, because we were talking about Pan's Labyrinth and how he and the guy from All Real Monsters might be cousins because they both hold their eyeballs.
Yes. And here for the YouTube, I'll show you on the back.
Yeah.
Let's see, can you see it?
There he is.
There he is.
I always appreciated how starchy his armpit hair was to go directly out. never flip down.
He flat irons that shit.
And then hairsprays the shit out of it.
Yeah. Yes.
But because he's naked on the show, which I don't know how Nickelodeon got away with that, but the statue of him too is naked, and so another picture we will post of them, I did get a close-up of his little tushy, so just in case you want to know what the All Real Monster's real butt would look like in real life, I have that on my phone, and it will go on our Instagram.
Real tushy.
There's also this was the story I wanted to take you to, that I think you came in after I did in Denver.
I did, yeah.
But it was called totally 80s or 80s something. Just if anyone's in Denver and you need something to do, just type in 80s store and it'll come up. It blew my fucking mind. Have I ever showed you pictures of that place, Eva?
No, that sounds so fun.
Eva, it was an emporium of it was everything 80s and 90s. Any trinket, any McDonald's toy, any stuffed animal, any popular game, any stuffed animal, I think I just said that, whatever. Whoa. Every single thing. It was from ceiling to floor, everything was crammed together on the shelves because there was just so much to get through. There was a Ghostbusters section. There was, shockingly very few Back to the Future stuff. There was Muppet stuff. There was Flintstones area.
Oh my
gosh.
There
was a Star Wars section. I mean, it was any toy from that era, if you remember it, or even the as seen on TV, kind of tchotchkes and stuff. We'll post pictures of that too on our Instagram. It blew my freaking mind. I FaceTimed Allison almost crying, being I found my haven. Anyway, that was a tangent, but I appreciate your shirt, Eva.
War for you. Referencing a thing we cut out.
Referencing a thing we cut out and found a way to insert back in. I also, something that Eva and I have discussed that nobody else knows about is I got this thing on Etsy and it just came in the mail and I have yet to open it. So if you're on YouTube, this is going to be a sight for you. But
yes, unboxing. It's
an unboxing and I haven't seen it yet. It's completely wrapped up. I want to give a shout out to the person on Etsy called Trans in Thesis. And the card that came with it said, "I hope this gives you goosebumps." Ooh. Just to give anyone an idea of what this might be.
I just remembered what it was.
It was a 3 a.m. purchase. So it was out of my control. I just pressed buy now. And apparently this person is a Goosebumps fan and makes little coffin-shaped bookshelves. And in the coffin-shaped bookshelf has little, like, mini size of your, like, finger, maybe, miniature copies of all the Goosebumps books. And so I bought the whole set because I'm a crazy person. And it looks amazing. Hang on. So I just opened it. There's plastic in here, I guess, to keep all the books from falling out. Sure. But it's even, if you're watching on YouTube, it's got little skulls and candles.
Oh my God.
Let me see if I can pull one of these books out.
I was going to say, all those books are little loose boys.
You can literally pull every one of them out, and they are real Goosebumps books.
Oh, my God.
Apparently, they're the original 62 Goosebumps books from the 90s.
Read them? Is there text in there?
No. Okay. If there was, my Hulk fingers would just break through the entire thing. But from the back... The front and the back and the sides all have all of the Goosebumps info. Please check our YouTube so you know what I'm talking about, so you can freak out with me. Because we're on air, I'm not going to get to, like, explore this as much as I'd like to, but I did tell Eva at 3 a.m. that I bought it, so I wanted you to be here for the unboxing.
Oh my God, I'm honored.
This is going right on my little tchotchke shelf, and again, that was Trans in Thesis if you want one for yourself. So it's delightful.
Love.
How are you, Eva? Because I just did a lot of talking.
Oh my gosh, no, thank you. Okay, I love that. Love a 3 a.m. purchase. I'm doing great. Speaking of 3 a.m. purchases, Rachel, my girlfriend, recently just purchased a nighttime purchase of a baked bread smelling candle, scented candle.
What?
Okay.
How did she find this?
It is so good. I actually don't know.
Does it smell like bread?
It smells exactly like bread. So we actually had some bread the next day that was from California Pizza Kitchen, and it tasted exactly the way that bread candle smelled. So
California Pizza Kitchen, you just got the endorsement of a lifetime that this candle smells exactly like your product.
Yes.
Wow. Yes. This sounds like something that, like, in the 80s, early 90s, my mom would have used as, like, a diet trick of, like, you can just light up the candle and feel like you're eating carbs.
Just smell it. You don't have to eat it. We ate it and smelled it.
So where did she get this candle? So we know where.
Yeah, one of them, I think the second one she ended up getting on Amazon, but I do think the first one was from, like, a company, like a candle company. I'll find the company and I'll, like, link it maybe on our Instagram at some point, because it's like so good. I
had thought of all the things a candle could smell like, but to capture the smell of bread is, like, just so obvious. It was under my nose the whole time.
Literally.
But, like, I just never thought. I just typed in bread candle, and the first one that comes up. Oh my God, hang on. There's a candle in here called the Stinky Candle Company, and I'm going to have to get one for the witch for
that
Christmas.
Might be it, because they do other let me see.
I'm sorry, there's the Stinky Candle Company. I don't know if this is the company that you bought it from. Yeah. They have a number 2 pencil scented candle.
Do they really? That might be it, because they also have a spooky season scented one, and it smells, like, somehow weirdly exactly like what you would think Halloween would smell like.
Really?
It's, like, the coolest. I'm going to get the company from Rachel, because it's so good.
Stinky Candle Company also has a pizza candle. I don't know about that, but they do have a bread candle. And then there was another place called Another One Bites the Crust that apparently is another bread. There's so many bread candles. Anyway, thank you for that revelation.
Yeah. Bringing it here. Yeah, I'll find the exact one and I'll link it on the maybe, like, Insta stories or something. But whew, yeah, it was a good one. And speaking of 3 a.m. purchases, I think otherwise I'm doing good.
I think that one is a sane enough explanation. It should just be like put in the normal run of the mill like 6 p.m. purchases. Like that one just makes sense that you could buy it at any hour, no one would
That's true.
judge you.
Yeah, including 3 a.m.
Right. Well, okay, so Eva, big news that I don't think either of us have totally processed or Christine was aware of before she left us to have a baby.
Yes,
Is that this is episode 250.
Okay, I meant to text you about that because as I was like, creating all the links and like upload stuff, like link for later, I was like, oh my God.
Are you kidding me?
Uh-oh.
Like, hello, this is a big one.
Oh my God.
Speaking of 3 a.m. and just losing my mind, I literally tried looking up trivia about the number 250 just to like see if anything would come up so we could embrace this moment. Fun fact, there's not like a lot of trivia about individual numbers. This actually does have one thing. Mm-hmm. Which I will mention in a second. But first, I wanted to do the numerology of 250.
Okay, I was literally just, if you didn't mention that, I was going to be like, wait, can we look that up though? I'm so glad.
I did it for us. Don't even worry. So, okay, I got this information from Affinity Numerology and a website called The Secret of Tarot.
Ooh.
So 250, I mentioned this a couple episodes back for some reason.
Oh, the Friday the 13th episode.
Okay, that's what it was, yes. And so I guess in numerology, each digit in the number brings its own energy to the number, and then there's like a combined energy. And so when you combine the energy from 2, 5, and 0, you're combining the energies of 2, which stands for duality and cooperation.
Oh.
Number 5, which stands for individuality because it's the middle point of 0 and 10. So it's kind of like either it stands alone or it's a turning point into the next chapter. Or 0, which means birth or rebirth or supreme. And it's kind of comprehensive in that it I don't know, is involved in every number. I'm not too sure. Huh. But birth/rebirth/ the universe. So when you add the coexistence of number 2, the freedom and individuality of number 5, and the inclusiveness of the number 0, that was a quote from the website, you end up getting these values or this essence out of 250. So if you happen to stumble across the number 250 and you're like, oh, what did that mean? If you're into like, finding numbers in your environment. If you see 250, this is what it means. It represents intuition, introspection, wisdom, duality, relationships, personal freedom, and potential.
Ooh.
And so if you were to clump those all together, the message you might get, this is one of like many interpretations, but you could take it as to evolve or have a rebirth into the next phase of life, you need to trust your relationship with the universe and use your inner wisdom to analyze the challenges ahead.
I love that.
And it's very telling. I think it resonated with me because of this episode of like, oh, like I should trust the universe. Fingers crossed that we get 250 more.
Yeah.
And use your inner wisdom to analyze the challenges ahead, the only challenge I can think of is why don't I have this fucking bread candle? But, if something else comes by, then like I can think of like, those, intuition and introspection were apparently like the main focus of this number. So,
oh my gosh, I love that. I feel like it also has some like tones of like, not quite like taking a break, but like regrouping in a way that feels really pertinent to like, Christine having a baby and like,
literal
sort of
birth and rebirth.
Literal birth. Yeah.
Whoa. Wow. Okay, Eva. Like,
that was all numerology.
By the way, shout out to Eva's like personal hobbies because this woman knows a thing or two about tarot. So I appreciate during quarantine you just reading me my own life every day.
Oh my gosh, well, it was from the tarot, the medieval cat tarot deck that you gave me.
Well, but then don't they say that like you like tarot cards, you have to be given them as a gift, right? You can't buy them yourself, or is it the opposite?
I've heard that. I think you actually told me that when you gave them to me, and I've heard that before too.
Oh. Maybe I was trying to justify why I bought you more tarot cards.
You're like, hi, this is more powerful than you even know.
Okay, so the other fun fact about 250, the only fun fact I could really find, was that in Chinese slang, 250 means idiot.
Oh, that's fun.
Apparently 250, it's pronounced Erbaiwu. I'm sure I'm fucking up the inflections and all that, but Erbaiwu is 250. And there's two reasons why. They don't know the official story, but there's two main stories as to why 250 became the word for idiot. So the first reason is the shorter reason, is that in ancient China, they used to have these copper coins, and if you had 1,000 of them, it was called a diao, which is was like a unit of currency. Mm-hmm. So if you had 1,000 of them, you had a diao. DAIO, for anyone wondering how badly I'm butchering the pronunciation. Mm-hmm. So half of a diao, or half of 1,000, would be 500 of these coins, or a bon diao. Mm-hmm. So apparently in China, there's culturally, from what I found on the internet, culturally there's like this air of modesty where like you almost kind of like are self-deprecating about your own intelligence, where you're like, oh, like I'm only like half smart. So instead of calling themselves fully smart, they would say like, oh, I'm bon diao, as in like half of 1,000, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And so, but actual stupid people, idiots, would be called a quarter of 1,000 instead of just the 1,000 that you're like being modest about. So a quarter of 1,000 is 250, and so they would be like stupid or an idiot.
Got it.
The second reason is a story, a very quick story of that in forever ago there was a Chinese kingdom called Qi, which is QI. So in Qi, the king's the way that the story was told to me is that it was his best friend, could have just been like someone he was close with, but I'm going to go with bestie because it like makes me feel better. So in the story, the king's best friend was named Su Qi, and I guess to get at the king, they killed his best friend. They killed some bad guy killed Su Qi. So the king decided to figure out who was his best friend's murderer. He put out this announcement saying, fun fact, Su Qi was actually an enemy of the state and you did me a favor, so please come to the palace so I can reward you.
Oh, shit.
And I will reward you with 1,000, or like one diao, 1,000 coins. And the trick was, they think they're coming here for a diao, but they're actually just going to get killed.
Oh, yikes.
And so just because they killed my best friend, I'm going to kill them back. So 4 different people fell for this trap, and they all showed up at the kingdom being like, I'm the one that killed Su Qi. And he was thinking like, y'all are fucking idiots. Like, I need to kill one of you. And if none of you own up to it, I have to kill all of you just to be safe.
Oh, shit.
And so he ended up saying like, okay, like if none of you are going to back down and like honestly say you didn't kill him, I'm going to have to assume all 4 of you did. So here's your 1,000 coins reward. I'll give you 250 each. And then he killed them. So it was like you were foolish enough to fall for that fake campaign, but also falsely admitting to murder. At least 3 of them were. So that's why 250 means idiot.
Oh my gosh. Wow, what a deep dive.
What a deep dive.
So
anyway,
interesting.
I had nothing else to offer, but that's my trivia about the number 250.
Oh my gosh, that's so cool.
Okay, now I'm ready to tell you my spooky story.
Yes. Okay. Yes, I'm ready.
I'm sorry we talked so much. We literally after yesterday were like, we won't talk as much, and then I inserted like 5 fucking stories into the beginning.
We're on it. We're here. We're zip-zapping. We're doing it.
So, Eva, for episode 250, I tried to find the earliest account of a poltergeist.
Whoa, cool.
And this is the story of the Devil of Glenless. The story is from the 1650s, which is 20 years earlier than the last story I just did about the witch Elizabeth Knapp, quote, the witch, or the possession of. So the story's from the 1650s. It is allegedly the, quote, earliest documented account of poltergeist activity. And although I feel like I've said that about a few stories at this point, but whatever. The story was published by a guy named George Sinclair. It's a story in one of his books. So quick fun facts about George Sinclair. He seemed very like he would have been one of our people because he was super interested in like demonology and witches and ghosts, but he was actually like just a mathematician or an engineer. This wasn't like, he kind of just fell into demonology, I guess. By the way, I realized I just said, oh, he's one of us because he's a mathematician and an engineer.
I thought because of demonologist.
Yes, that's what I meant, but I'm
Yes,
sure,
yes,
like,
okay.
I do not think I'm an engineer. I don't even know where fucking...
An engineer of good times.
The way he fell into it was that in 1654, he was a professor and he held philosophy and math chairs. And then in 1655, for some reason, one of like his like claims to fame was while a professor, he contributed to inventing a type of diving bell that helped with shipwrecks.
Oh.
And then a year later, he ends up getting fired from his professor job, but he became a mineral surveyor, which led to him like supervising the city's water piping.
Huh.
So he I don't know, he went from one thing to a very different thing, but got really invested in minerals and in the city's water. So through this, he ended up actually being the person in Scotland, fun fact, to figure out how to drain water from coal mines.
Oh, interesting.
So he's got that. He's got the diving bell thing. He's all over the place.
He's a skilled lad.
So he is. He's a skilled lad. So then he becomes a math professor at the University of Edinburgh, and he, quote, based on the principle of siphons, invented the early example of a perpetual motion machine. So I don't know what that means, but it sounds like it was yet another thing to put on his little resume.
Wow.
And then 5 years later, he ended up dying. But his biggest accomplishment was in the 1670s, while he was working in minerals and water piping. He published a book. I guess he published a bunch of books, but this was the book he kind of got better known for. It was a book about minerals and water piping, and it was called Hydrostatics, the Force, Weight, and Pressure of Fluid Bodies. It sounds like a textbook I would have to buy for school and never fucking touch.
Yeah, yeah.
Well, he ended up modifying it. I don't know what is going on in there or what was going on in his mind either, but he ended up republishing this book with like new additions, like demonology. So like,
wait, what?
It's a random like water physics book that also has to do with demons.
Oh my god, I want to talk to him. Did he see demons in the mines? Did he see demons in the pipes?
All of a sudden, like, I need a school textbook, and it's from 1680, so I don't think it even exists anymore. But it was called, he renamed it to Hydrostatical Experiments with Miscellany Observations and a Relation of an Evil Spirit, and also a discourse concerning coal. Like,
wait,
what?
Okay, wait. I don't know why this made me think of like parents trying to make children eat broccoli and like hiding it like under cheese or like in something
Absolutely.
fun. It's like, hi, here, scientists. I'm one of you, and also, would you like to read about these demons? Because I'm gonna make you in this textbook.
It was like the reverse of putting a pill in cheese. It was like, oh, the cheese is actually in the middle. It's actually all the demons. But yeah, hydrostatical experiments with miscellany observations and a relation of an evil spirit, and also a discourse concerning coal. So like he really did just slip it in there and hope no one noticed.
He was like, I've got a lot to say about a lot of things.
It reminds me, there's like one book that's like I see on the internet all the time where it was like something about like love, sex, and raising wolves or something. It was like, it was something weird where everyone's like, what is going on in this book? There's a lot of twists and turns in the title alone. So anyway, when he wrote that and somehow inserted evil spirit content, in it included one story called The Devil of Glenless. And so I guess you're like reading on page 1 about hydrostatics and you get to page 20 and all of a sudden there's the Devil of Glenless. And I guess it was like maybe the devil is involved in our science. Maybe for the time he thought the science is the devil. Science is the devil. I don't know. But he was also a scientist and he invented shit. I don't understand where he was going with it.
Maybe it was like one of those, I'm trying to think of like, because I feel like growing up there was a lot of like, you know, contention between like, you know, Christianity and science, but then there were some Christians who were like, no, God is in everything, so God is in science too. So maybe it was like similar to that of like, well, if God can be in the science, the devil can sure be in the science. I'm stretching.
You know, no, I mean, honestly, that makes more sense than my flippant, I don't know. So, you know what's so funny is that in this book, he had people who were critics of the book, like, duh, someone should be. And one of them ended up writing a whole pamphlet arguing that this book was, like, not accurate, or why his argument wasn't true. And what's so weird is in this whole pamphlet of criticisms about the book, not once was like the witches and ghost part touched. Like
No
he
way.
he went in truly for the science, critiquing the science, and like I guess he just saw that there was a chapter about a devil and just went, never mind, I'm not going to read that part.
Whoa, oh, that's so interesting.
You would think if you wrote a whole science textbook and then threw demons in there, the first person to send you like a critique, the first sentence would be like, yo, what the fuck is up with the demon chapter?
Like maybe write a separate book? Do you want to like discuss that separately? No?
And fucking everyone just totally, he must have really slipped it in there, like a really good pill in the cheese. Okay, so he wrote this hydrostatics book. Then he made an updated version that had the devil part in it that people somehow just completely ignored. Then that story, I guess he realized like, it didn't really do well in a textbook about science, so let me republish the story of the devil in a different book about actual demons.
Got it.
And so in 1685, George Sinclair, who is like writing all these like textbooks and shit, he also writes a book called Satan's Invisible World Discovered.
Ooh.
And that's where he inserts that story in for a second time, and that's when it gets super popular.
Got it.
And the book itself was, quote, an exploration of demonic activity and an attempt to refute atheism. So I guess to be like, oh, demons are real and therefore God's real.
Oh, I see. Got it.
And so this is when the story blew up, and apparently this book was like actually super popular at the time. Like in the 1680s, like everyone knew someone who had this book.
The hottest read off the presses.
Hey, all they had before was apparently like hydrostatic textbooks, and they were like, oh, and the same guy's now writing demon content. Let's get that one at the library.
Okay, wait, that is really fun though.
Right? Doesn't that feel so weird?
Yeah.
It feels like a Carl Sagan thing with his book Cosmos. Like, if you're going to talk about the universe and science enough, I feel like it's expected that someone will ask you questions about spirits. But maybe that's me inserting my own interests.
No, that makes sense, because if you're already going into realms of like, kind of like, not conjecture, but like things that are beyond sort of normal quote unquote normal understanding, maybe it goes into that.
I feel like
as well.
I feel like it's a like Carl Sagan, and then after him like Neil deGrasse Tyson. I feel like I, for some reason, care so much about their opinions on like the afterlife and spirits. So I guess it's not too far off that someone who's already in science and talking about this kind of stuff would have an opinion.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's again just me totally just like a wild random thought of my own. But anyway, I'm trying to explain why on earth people took this seriously. So the story itself that he wrote, called The Devil and Glennless, that he has now republished into this new story about Satan. The setting of the story, it's actually a few years earlier. It's in 1654, and it's in the rural village of Glenless, which I did see on the internet was in Galloway or Galway, Scotland.
Got it.
It was like a smaller rural village in that area. Cool. So the family that we're going to talk about is the Campbell family. The husband's name was Gilbert, and he was a weaver in town.
Oh.
And him and his family lived in Glenless. So he was married to a woman named Grisel Wiley, which, wow, okay.
Grisel Wiley, also one I want to come up on a Ouija board.
Right, that's absolutely one you can expect on a Ouija board. And they had several kids, but the main ones for this story are Thomas and I think it's Janet. It was spelled differently, but I think it over time developed into Janet.
Got it.
So it's Gilbert, his wife Grisel Wiley, and then their two kids that are crucial to the story, Thomas and Janet. One night, a beggar named Alexander Agnew, which weird that we knew the beggar's full name, but okay.
Yeah.
He knocks on their door and asks if they have any food or money and if they could help him. The Campbells didn't have anything, so they ended up turning him away. But as this beggar left, he threatened the family, and a lot of people like to start the story off by saying it was his doing that he like put a curse on the home. But we don't actually know if it was related at all. It's just, I think, good storytelling.
Sure.
So the first thing, right after like he leaves, weird shit does start to happen in the house. And then there is some people who their theory of the story of, oh, the beggar like snuck into your house and caused all these problems. But it's just, again, that could be,
Well,
a version of storytelling. We have no proof of it.
I feel like that's kind of the age-old thing of like, is it a ghost or did someone break into your house? Like the
Right.
true crime versus paranormal, like both are scary. Which one is it?
Even in the 1670s or whatever, we were thinking that, I guess. So,
Yeah.
so the first thing that they noticed was that there was a whistling that started being heard around the property. And it was like in the house, on the land, it didn't matter where you were, people could hear this whistling. And it went on for months, like months and months and months. And it started to drive the family crazy. What I think is funny that you'll notice throughout this story is that the demon, it's instead of like trying to harm anyone, it's like pure intention is to just annoy the shit out of them. It's like, and so it started with this whistling where the family was like going crazy. They just could not figure out where it was coming from. One day Janet goes down to the well for water, and while she's there, she hears a very loud whistling in her ear. And then she hears this voice. She says it sounded like it was coming right next to her. The voice said, "I'll cast thee into the well."
Ooh.
I'll throw you in. And I think there was another witness that said they also heard this, but either way, the story goes that Janet heard it like right in her ear, but nobody else was there. Or nobody else was that close to her to have said that.
Ooh.
So the whistling apparently sounded, according to Janet, quote, as children used to make with their small, slender glass whistles.
What?
First of all, maybe I'm just from another time, but who's giving children small, slender glass whistles?
Yeah, that sounds like a choking hazard.
Or a shatter hazard. Like,
also
like,
that.
I feel like if you blow on this whistle a little too hard, you got little pieces of glass in your mouth. And like,
not great.
I've never seen a glass whistle before. Like, I think of kazoos. Was it just because a kazoo hadn't been invented yet?
They're like bright neon green plastic. Not quite yet.
Not slender glass like the
Yeah.
olden times with your hoop and stick. So apparently it sounded like those things that we have no frame of reference for. Gilbert started, not only was the whistling getting bad, but Gilbert started finding all of his work equipment broken all over the house.
Oh no.
And sometimes it would just go missing and found in totally weird places. Sometimes the missing items around his house would be found like by the door or under the bed, or like would just never be found at all. And I guess his kids are trusting, but he went to them and they said, "We're not doing that. Like, we don't know where your stuff is going." At the same time, it was probably super believable when the kids said, "I don't know what's going on," because very quickly after this, objects started flying around the house by unseen hands.
Oh, okay.
The family was getting grabbed and shoved.
Ooh.
And apparently missing weaving equipment, including the needles,
Yikes.
is now either showing up or the needles themselves are like pricking them in the back.
Ooh, no.
So, and sometimes the needles are being found, sometimes they're not. So it's almost like they're getting stabbed by this invisible needle that went when the real needle went missing.
Oh no.
So now they're getting like casually stabbed in their home.
Just a little casual weaving stabbing.
You know. I like to think with a weaving needle, I don't know how, I like to think it was dull. I don't know anything about weaving, but I do know that throughout the story, it does say that the kids in the family like never were truly physically harmed.
Oh, good.
So I'm thinking that if they were getting pricked by this thing, it was almost like they were more getting poked by a really dull stick.
Got it, yeah.
I don't know what a weaving needle looks like, so.
I mean, I know what one of those big weaving looms looks like that has one
That's
of those.
what I'm thinking too.
Right? Yeah, that has that like shuttle thing that goes back and forth.
Yeah, so I don't know. Let's hope it was not painful.
Yeah.
He also noticed that the threads that he used for work were being cut, like they were literally with scissors just being sliced up. And then not only was his own work equipment getting cut up, all of the family's linen. So their hats, their clothing, their shoes, their bed sheets, anything that you could take scissors or a knife to, they were finding it like randomly in their home completely shredded.
God, that's really scary. That looks like, I feel like that would look like the aftermath of like, you know, what's the horror, or like Edward Scissorhands or something, but like what's the other one that has the knives for...
Oh, Freddy Krueger.
Freddy Krueger, yeah. That was just like the aftermath. Or coming for you again, like... By
the way, Freddy Krueger, ooh, a Pokemon card just got delivered. This house is
Oh.
just a fun house for children.
Fun
I
house of 3 a.m. purchases.
I feel so bad for Allison sometimes. I realized that, like, yesterday I had a whole conversation with her about Pokemon cards while I was drinking my juice box, and then, like, something else happened, and then, like, I ended the conversation with being like, can you make me chocolate milk? Like, I was like, I was like, I have just devolved as a human into either the best version of myself or the worst version, but, like, Allison works with all these, like, corporate people, and I was like, never tell them like, it's just gonna make you look so bad. Like, just like, oh, I talk about ghosts and drink my juice boxes. Like, it's so stupid.
It might be a good recess for her.
It's certainly it keeps her on her toes because she never knows how quickly I'm gonna fall into another, I don't know, trend from 1993. Okay, so we were talking about, all the clothes getting shred up like Freddy Krueger.
Yeah.
Fun fact, I said this years ago, but I haven't brought it up in a long time. My aunt dated Freddy Krueger in college.
Oh my God. Wait, I feel like I vaguely remember you mentioning that. That's so wild. Like the actor?
Yes.
The
No,
actor.
the
Who would it
actual
be?
demon who visits your dreams. Yeah, Eva.
He just sweeps on in. It's like, can you be a little more like consistent?
The next time your sleep paralysis demon shows up, be like, I'm sorry, but you dated my friend's aunt. Do you not remember her? Leave me alone.
Your Tinder profile wasn't very like appealing. Can you like move along, please?
No, apparently his name is Robert England, I think.
Oh.
Yeah, they dated, I don't think for a long time, but they dated for a good time. So, that's my only fun fact about Halloween and personal history. So I say it too often, but yes, it's exactly like if my aunt's ex-boyfriend came to your house and ripped up all of his fucking clothes. So anyway, even creepier, by the way, it's more Freddy Krueger than you think. It has nothing to do with I don't think it has anything to do with like when you're sleeping or whatever, but in the middle of the day, you would just realize that the clothes you had on that were fine earlier are now completely torn up on the sides of you.
No.
So it's like you're not even doing anything, and all of a sudden it'll just sneak up and start cutting your stuff.
Would they like see the scissors or just the cuts would appear?
It just appear.
Ooh.
I have a feeling they would feel the sensation of their shirt being cut, but they were never cut, which is another reason why they say like, oh, this thing never physically harmed them. I'm feeling if it wasn't willing to cut them, it probably wasn't willing to stab them too hard. But I mean, it also sounds like it was a literal demon, so I don't know where its standards are.
And it feels like probably at the time they wouldn't necessarily know that. So if they're seeing it being sliced, like, oh my God, I would think my skin was next for sure.
Oh, I mean, it's at least the psychological torture is very much there.
Yeah.
I don't know what it is about like these 1600s demons from the UK, but now rocks start getting thrown at them. Y'all fucking love rocks getting thrown at you. Like that seems to not be a thing in like a lot of American stories, but all of the super old school stories from the UK, there's a ghost that is throwing rocks at people.
Huh. Maybe that was like going back to All Real Monsters and like Monster School. Maybe that's what they learned in the UK Ghost Academy that I just created in my head.
You get it.
I get it.
So they're just getting pelted with rocks. I feel like I just did another story where the family was getting pelted with rocks. And Gilbert notices that the rocks are being thrown in super high numbers at a great force, which makes him think it's no way it's the kids anymore, because they're coming like down the roof, they're coming down the chimney, they're coming through the windows and the doors when the whole family's there. Again, shockingly, nobody's getting hurt. It's just to terrify them. And furniture starts moving and drawers are opening and the contents of those drawers are flying everywhere.
Oh, God.
The bed sheets are getting ripped off of them while they sleep. I mean, it's, their items and their articles of clothing are all getting destroyed. So it's just kind of the whole shebang, if you will.
A tornado, like a paranormal tornado.
That is what it is. The twista, as I call it. So Gilbert, I guess to at least keep his clothes safe from getting cut up, he brings them to the neighbors for safekeeping. He's like, I can't explain this to you. Can you just watch my clothes?
Help.
And so I guess he had to eventually tell them what was going on. And so his neighbors and his friends were like, dude, like, move away. What is wrong with you? It's like, why are
Yeah.
you still there? And I guess they couldn't afford anything else, as the old story goes.
Yeah.
But they said, at least send your kids away, because it wasn't like, oh, because the devil could be hurting one of them. It was like for science, which makes sense why George Sinclair would be into this story.
Oh.
But they were like, send your kids away to different locations and see which one of them the devil follows.
Oh my God, kids as bait.
They were like, the kids literally might be the one that the demon's after, and it might be one in particular. So figure out which one is the target, and then that way you can at least like remove that child or something.
Oh my God.
Gilbert and his wife send the kids away, and for those several days there was actually no activity in the house. So
Oh shit.
Whichever-
Write us a letter. Tell us in a couple weeks. We'll know.
Yeah, exactly. FaceTime me in 1680 and tell me which one of you is still getting cut.
Oh God.
So the local Minister Scott, told him to actually bring the children back so that the whole family could pray together. And all the kids are coming back one by one. And then the kid, Thomas, comes home and activity starts up again. So ding, 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 we know who the target is.
Wow, that is such a scientific process.
Hey, it worked. I'm not saying it was like ethical science, but it was good science, you know? So the first 2 days that Tom comes back, on both of those days, a different fire breaks out in the house by itself.
Oh, fire. We've moved up from rocks to fire.
We've moved all the way up from like needles to rocks to fire.
Oh God.
Luckily, both times neighbors walking by saw the fire and were able to put it out. These neighbors, by the way, are like on top of it's like they've been waiting their whole lives for some sort of paranormal shit. They were like, we already know what to do with the kids. We are prepared to like watch your house every second of the day to put out a fire.
Wow.
And Gilbert ends up asking the minister that he was talking to earlier, he says, can Tom go stay with you for a little bit while we figure this out? Because you're a holy man. As in, like, you know, maybe he'll be safer there.
Yeah.
The minister takes Tom in, but I think one source told me that his clothes also started getting torn up.
The minister?
The minister. Whatever happened, the minister, like, literally brought the kid back. He was like, no.
Thank you. Returning to sender.
Exactly. So he came back, and apparently it got really bad again, and now the kid is actually getting, like, beaten by this demon.
Oh no.
So he had to move out again. The minister took him back in, being like, okay, like, I guess my clothes can get cut up so a kid doesn't get hurt.
Oh.
So he goes back. This is like the third time he's been kicked out of his fucking house, because he had to go be with a random person, and now he's with the minister twice. So now, while Tom's gone for the third time, the family keeps hearing this voice. And at first they actually start trying to talk to this voice.
Ooh.
They hear this demon. I don't know. I guess it's maybe the same voice that Janet heard by the well earlier, but they start hearing this voice talking to them. And so they start being, I guess, asking questions like, who are you? Or like some sort of like commanding questions that enable conversation, because this thing started talking and never shutting up, which is, I guess, another way to annoy the hell out of this family.
Oh my God, the very first podcast.
Yeah. And the family, eventually they were like, I think it's best, like, we should have not done that. Let's just ignore whatever this voice is. Let's just ignore it. But it got to a point where they were so afraid that this voice would just take any opportunity to chime in and talk to them that the family stopped talking to each other too.
Oh no.
They just lived in silence, hoping that this thing wouldn't try to talk to them.
Is that like The Quiet Place? I've never seen it, but
no, but
I was like, I know the word quiet is in it, so let me just throw that out there incorrectly.
I mean, I guess it has overlaps in that they are both quiet.
Moving on.
There actually are some similarities to it, but it was in A Quiet Place. It's this monster that, like, if it hears any sound, it like strikes to kill. So they have to be super quiet so that this thing doesn't find them.
Got it.
It's like they know their prey. This thing, they just don't want to talk to it. It's like social anxiety.
This thing they're just giving the cold shoulder to.
Yeah, this thing, they're like, if you look the other direction long enough, he'll leave.
Yeah, maybe he'll get the hint.
It's the social version of A Quiet Place. The minister starts hearing voices too when he goes back over to pray with the family again. So now the family isn't the only ones dealing with this. The minister has heard it. And he decides, okay, I'm going to bring some other people over and it's not just going to be me praying. I'm just going to bring like a whole group of people, and let's just all pray over your family together and see what happens.
Mm.
Because now there's like been 2 fires and the kids are still getting harassed, and I'm sure the minister was like, I don't want this kid at my house anymore. My clothes keep getting scratched up. So like,
Yeah.
let's just find a way as a community to make this work.
He's also like, my clothes are very specific. Like,
Right. Like he has
don't-
like, what are they called? The things?
oh, the big collar, the like minister's
The
whatever.
minister yesterday was called a black robe, right?
Oh, that's
so maybe
right. Yeah.
he's got some sort of black robe thing.
Oh.
I don't know.
Rogue to rogue.
So he calls all of these people in town to come pray over the family with him. I think there's about 5 people there in total.
Mm.
So I guess a lot of people were like, no, we've heard about this and want nothing to do with it. They're already hearing a voice, right? They're already hearing this voice talk to them as a family.
Mm-hmm.
Now the minister is really hearing the voice, and the devil, I guess, I'm assuming he's the devil, the demon who has been completely like cold-shouldered by this family and has just wanted someone to talk to this whole time.
Oh.
Is very chatty today because the minister now comes in and is like, all right, let's fucking talk. Like, come on, demon, where are you? So this becomes what I consider the longest back and forth conversation with a demon I've ever seen in my life.
Oh my gosh, longer than the script from last week? I feel like the last one you did, they had like a script, like a back and forth script with Elizabeth.
It's kind of also another back and forth script, but it won't feel like it, but I did limit it. There was like several more pages I could have put in, and it just all kind of felt like the same thing, so I don't think we're really missing any like specific dirt. You know what I mean?
All the
like
demon dirt.
no drama. I left all of the important stuff in. So the minister comes over, and all of a sudden he hears a voice. And the voice says, it's 2 Latin words. It says, "Huam literarum."
Oh.
And what's really important about it is the fact that apparently the minister later said that those were the first words of the, quote, Latin rudiments that you learn in school.
Oh.
So
okay.
it was, I think it was like kind of that creepy demon thing where it was like playing into one of your memories, or like it knew something about you that like was
Oh.
important to you. So he says, "Quam literarum," which I guess let the minister know like, oh, we're fucking going for it.
We're in it, yeah.
Then he hears the demon's voice again say, "A dog."
What? In now not Latin?
And not in Latin. Now we're back to English, apparently.
He was like, got your attention, now let's talk about this pup over here.
Honestly, it would have gotten my attention a lot more if you said a dog first.
Yeah,
I would have been like,
True.
where?
But, yeah, show me.
So I guess the minister assumed that the demon was calling him a dog. And so the minister snapped at him, was like, he said something like, "I'm not a fucking dog," or like, "Yo, like, what's going on?" The demon replies in very polite English and says, "It was not you, sir, I spoke it to. I meant by the dog there, for there was a dog standing behind your back."
I'm so sorry. This demon is like...
This is an educated, scholared demon. He's got Latin, he's got proper English, he's got manners. He went to etiquette school, for sure.
I mean, he's also maybe feeling a little sassy because no one was talking to him, and now he's like, no, I wasn't fucking talking to you. Inside, I want to get to this dog, please.
Only one of us can have an ego here, okay? Don't think I'm giving you all my attention.
Oh my gosh.
So the men decide, when he says like, oh, because there was a dog standing behind your back, the men decide that the demon is like trying to trick them. They're like, we don't see a dog. So they just start praying, and they hear a voice coming from under a bed. And now it's still the demon voice. Now it's under the bed. And apparently not only in proper English, I guess, it was in the proper country dialect. So it's now speaking just like them. Oh. And the demon says, "Would you know the witches of Glenless? I will call them."
There are witches now?
There's witches, and he's got them on speed dial.
He was like, no one else is talking to me, so I'm bringing all my friends over. This dog, these witches.
He was like, I'm not talking to you. I wasn't talking about you. Calm the fuck down. But also, while you're here, do you happen to know all of the witches of Glenless? So then, I guess his version of the witches of Glenless, he just rattled off a few names of people in town that had bad reputations.
Oh, interesting.
One of them, Gilbert later tells the group that one of them had actually died a while ago. So why is he
Oh.
mentioning this guy? And also, how did this voice know about this person who died?
Wait, yeah, that's interesting.
So he
Huh.
says this, I guess, within earshot of the bed, aka this voice with a proper dialect.
Hmm.
And so he says, like, oh, one of those names, that person just died recently. And the voice responds and says, it's true, she's dead, but her spirit is with us.
Oh.
So it's like, okay, so now you know some Latin from his childhood, the minister's childhood. You know about the afterlife and who's with you. You are naming people in town. So like you have a lot of information about these locals.
Yeah.
And then the minister says, basically he says, yo, back the fuck up. But then the proper language, he says, quote, the Lord rebuke thee, Satan, and put thee to silence. We are not to receive any information from thee. Thou art but seeking to seduce this family, for Satan's kingdom is not divided against itself. So he's basically saying, like, okay, shut up. Like, we don't want to hear what you have to say.
Also, stop inviting your friends over. We didn't say you could do that.
Also, stop rattling off names like you need the attention. Like, okay, you've got friends.
Yeah, stop name dropping. We get it.
I know. So at one point, Tom is the kid that was like has been getting carted back and forth. I guess he came over with the minister, so he is home for this.
Poor Tom.
Like, couldn't Tom have just stayed home and like watched some Price is Right and like eaten some soup and like called it a day?
I mean, maybe
No.
the demon wanted to do that too.
Okay, fair. Also, I guess maybe the minister had to bring him to like almost like reel in the demon of like, look who's here, your favorite target.
Right.
Which, like, wow, like doing that with a kid, like just luring in demons with this child.
Yeah, yikes.
So at one point, Tom hears the demon's voice while he's at the house, and they're having this whole conversation. He hears the demon threaten him for coming back and saying, like, you knew better to stay away from here. But the minister steps in, sees the controversy happening, and says, the Lord will preserve this house and the lad too. Like,
Oh, okay.
God is protecting us and him, so, like, get out of his face. The devil, or the demon, then says, he was put out already and shall not abide here, and I shall pursue him to the end of the world.
Tom?
Yeah, Tom, he's like,
Aw.
this. He already left, he knows better than to stay here, and I will follow him no matter what anyway.
Oh no.
So the minister says, basically, like, God will stop you from bothering him. The demon says, well, leave the house for a week, and I'll leave for good. He doesn't say it as, like, sassy as I just did. It's, like, much more, like, Old English. But he basically says, like, if you leave the house for a week, I'll make a deal with you and I'll officially leave too.
Huh.
But then the minister, I guess his thought process was, like, if you do that, you are obeying a demon and it's, like, almost giving him more power, so it's a trick.
Okay.
So the minister was like, God will remove you. Like, we don't have to go anywhere. God will remove you for us.
Okay.
And the demon is like, I won't be removed. I'm here to torment the family. And then the minister's like, well, God will stop you eventually. It's such a back and forth. This is why I didn't put all of the information in. Or like how I said, there's like several more pages of dialogue. It's like, it feels like people breaking up and they're just like, you know, why don't you just leave? Well, I'm not going to leave. Well, then I'll leave. But no, you leave. So it became this like weird, like catty, unimportant conversation as far as I'm concerned. The last parts I'll say of the conversation, the demon says, I, sir, have a commission from God, which perhaps will last longer than you, which was implying like I'm here for a lot longer than you'll be on Earth.
Oh.
And interestingly, he ended up predicting the fact that less than a year later, the minister did die.
What? Oh my
So,
god.
In this, he was kind of taunting, like, you're not going to be here forever. And the demons, I don't know. It was a weird coincidence.
Huh.
So after the prayers, after like all this group of people are here and still praying. This, by the way, like they all came over here, I'm assuming, being told like, oh, the minister is like gonna lead us through this prayer, but they're all praying and the minister is like just like catty with the demon. Like I would be there praying, being like, dude, like, can you help us? Like, what are we supposed to do?
You're leading this shit. Tell us what to say. Tell us what to do. Power in numbers.
And he keeps getting distracted by just hanging out with the devil, I guess. after enough of this conversation, I guess they all kind of got fed up and started exploring the house, and they were trying to find out where this voice was coming from, thinking maybe they were being tricked. And so they go into the kids' bedroom and they said, like, oh, well, some of the kids were in bed at the same time that we heard a voice under this bed. Maybe it's just the kids.
Okay.
Like, maybe this isn't real. And so they started thinking, like, oh, we're being tricked, we're being bamboozled. And then the demon voice, which, like, all the kids, I guess, either aren't in bed right now. I hope they're not in bed. Like, there's a literal kind of, like, exorcism thing going on right now.
Yeah.
So I hope the kids are not in the house, or they've, like, gone down to the kitchen for a snack.
Or, like, in the prayer circle or something. Like, in the middle of a salt ring or something. Yeah.
Meanwhile, Tom is, like, strapped to a burning chair or something.
Poor
Like,
Tom. Tom's like, hi, please stop making me bait.
Well, so then they, I guess, at a time when the kids weren't in the room, they heard the voice again, kind of confirming, like, oh, it's not the kids like we thought it was. And the voice, I guess, was offended at the thought that it might not be an actual demon. It could just be, like, simple human children. So the demon gets all angered up, and he says, you lie, God shall judge you for your lying, and I and my father will come and fetch you to hell. Okay, so we just learned two things. One, apparently his father is Satan.
Okay.
Two, loving that he needs daddy's help. Of, like,
yes,
I will call my father.
He's like, I'm going to tell my dad.
He's going to bring you down to hell for me because I can't do it alone. So the minister then says, the Lord rebukes your spirit and casts you out. And the demon replies with, it is written in 9th of Mark, the disciples could not cast him out. Oh. So I guess after that, it becomes like, the second that the minister heard the demon reciting Bible verses, I guess he took it as a challenge. And for truly reading this, it felt like it took a million years. It was like 3 pages of Old English of them just, like, duking it out in some weird scripture battle of, like, they just kept shouting verses to each other. And as someone who has not read the Bible, I was very confused. I was like, what is going on?
As someone who has read the Bible, I probably would have been confused and also over it.
It was also in, like, the weird English, so I kept trying to translate something I ultimately wouldn't even understand. And so it was, just trust me that I'm going to end it here for you, where it's like he mentions one Bible verse about how, like, the disciples couldn't cast him out. And the minister took that as a challenge, and for the next 3 pages, they just, like, shouted verses at each other.
They're, like, one-upping each other on Bible knowledge.
Exactly. The minister was like, this demon's not going to, like, pull a fast one on me. So after all of that, basically the minister says, like, who are you? Where did you come from? And the demon says he is, quote, an evil spirit come from the bottomless pit of hell to vex this house. I looked up what vex means, and it literally just means, like, to annoy the family. So he literally is like, I am just the son of Satan, and clearly I'm just, like, a bored teenager, and I'm here to piss off the family because I can.
Wait, I love that. I love that it started and ended like that.
Yeah, I know. So then out of nowhere, did not see this coming, a disembodied arm shows up in the room.
Oh, no.
From elbow to fingers.
Ew.
And this hand starts banging on the floor.
No.
And tries to make the house rumble, like make it shake.
Ew.
And then you hear the demon's voice saying, come up, Father, come up. I will send my Father among you.
Wait, what? That's like it seems like a play or something. Like they're trying to get the trap door open.
It feels like this demon is trying to, like, overtake this exorcism. Like, he's like, now they're both trying to summon a different demon. I don't really understand.
Whoa.
But anyway, he's saying, like, I am the son of Satan. We will bring you to hell. And now, like, come on up, Father. Like, it's time to help me cart these people off.
Oh my God.
And I guess Gilbert, the main husband of this family, who is watching all this happen, I guess it felt like he was taunting the demon. He basically said, like, oh, just like how I can hear you, I'd love if I could actually see your face. Like, it's a shame, like, you're not powerful enough to do that.
Oh, I'm sorry. Zach Bagans? Hello?
It's his father, Gilbert Baggins, okay? Do you mind?
Great grandfather.
His great grandpappy, Gilbert Bagelbites. So he basically, and it felt like taunting. That's not actually in the writing, but that's just kind of how I took it. Where he was like, "Oh, I'd love if I could actually see you." And the demon says, "Well, put out the candle, and I shall come among you like fireballs." Which also sounds like something Zach Bagans would say.
Yeah.
But he basically says, like, "Put out the candle, and in the dark, I'll let you see me indeed."
Hmm.
The demon then says, at some point, by the way, has not shown himself, so calling bullshit. He then says, "If your son's prayers did not prevail with God," it's Old Englishy, but he basically says, "If your prayers to God aren't working, then my father and I will be victorious."
Mm-hmm.
But one of the people praying says, "So you admit that there's a God and we can get rid of you by praying to him."
Oh.
And this man, I guess, had just like bought a new hat or something in town. So this demon feels like a sassy adolescent who's like just trying to get in all of his gotchas.
Yeah.
And so when the man calls him out and says like, "Oh, so you're saying like if we pray to God, you'll go away." In some weird last ditch effort to like diss him, the demon says, "Sir, you speak of prayer with your broad-lipped hat. I'll bring a pair of shears from my father and clip the lips of it."
Okay, I get why people think these are the kids now, because, like, not
Truly.
that I think they are, but, like, that is a very sassy, like, child,
It's
adolescent, like, teen thing to say.
like he got caught in the fact that he admitted that God was real, so now the demon's like, "Well, I'm gonna cut up your brand new hat, make you feel real dumb." And
That'll show you, won't it?
that'll show you, and it also feels, in my mind, this demon's gay. Like, I just feel like I'm getting this like diva fashionista thing coming from him, like kind of like the trope of like someone who's like, super diva-y. I don't know why,
Yeah.
but I think also because I was reading all of this old English for hours, and it just also feels very flowery and like,
Well, yeah, and it's like, what's
you
the
know,
worst that, like, this demon is trying to think of the worst thing, and what's the worst thing possible is that he
your
can think
fashion
of your
sense. Are you
fashion, your
kidding?
hat.
I mean, he's like, I get that it's just like, all I'm doing is feeding into stereotypes and not trying to, but I am getting a vibe from this demon that like he really likes to go attack your style. I mean, he's literally destroying their entire wardrobe.
Oh my god, that's right.
Right? Like, he is not, I'm just saying. So, he says, like, "I'll basically bring a pair of, like, scissors straight from hell and cut your hat up."
Which we
And
already know he had scissors, because he's been cutting, right? Like you
he's
were
been doing
saying.
it the whole time. I'm
Yeah.
thinking of, like, a Tim Gunn on, like, Fashion Project, or what's it?
That-
Project Runway. Project
yeah,
Runway.
yeah.
I feel like he's just like, "Oh, it's time to cut this up," you know?
Time to make it something new.
So what's interesting, and to answer your question earlier about like, were they feeling the shirt get cut or not,
Oh,
or
yeah.
were they just looking down and seeing it cut? After he like disses this guy and says like, "Oh, your brand new hat," which by the way, I love that he already knew that this guy had a brand new, like he could see
Yeah.
it from a mile away and was like, "I know a new hat when I see one." But I guess after he like dissed this guy who was wearing the hat, he actually heard and felt thick scissors cutting through his hat, and so he lifted it up to check on it to see if it was being cut. So I'm thinking that's what happened with the family earlier, where they would feel their shirts being like tugged on with scissors.
Got it.
At one point he threatens this is where it like gets like dark again. At one point he threatens one of the kids with a belt, saying that he will tighten it around their bones.
Oh.
It's a new threat.
Yeah.
And then he tries to get Gilbert's wife to give him some bread, which is like...
Bread candle? Would you like a bread candle?
Honestly, I did not see the ties until this moment that maybe he just wanted a bread candle.
Maybe a seance with bread candles would have, like, sent him back. Yeah.
You get it. Or I like that he was like, I imagine he was just so tired of like this back and forth, and he was like, "Do you have any carbs? Like I need something to keep going."
It's like Michael Scott carbo loading before the race.
So apparently, like the wife did come in and like literally brought all these people praying bread, which I love that like like she's like the soccer mom with oranges. Like during halftime, she brought them some bread to like charge up for the rest of their praying.
Love it.
And at that time, the demon's voice said something like, "Oh, break me off a piece of the bread." But I guess the minister again was like, first of all, that's obeying the demon, and that's breaking bread with the demon is literally making a sacrifice to him. So don't listen to him. Also, like, where is he? Where was she gonna toss the bread to, like, give him some?
I mean, if the disembodied arm is still there, he was like, "Hi,
Oh,
hello, can I
yes.
grab some?"
And then you see some disembodied teeth all of a sudden show
Yeah,
up.
yeah.
So after all of this, everyone starts going home because they're like, we are not getting anywhere. The minister told the family to ignore whatever the demon said, to just pray through it, because that seemed to be working. At least he, like, wasn't talking during that. And the demon hears this and freaks out that he'll get, like, neglected again, I guess, because he goes, "What? Will ye not speak to me? I shall strike the children and do all manners of mischief."
Oh, no.
So everyone took it as, like, a trick, so they tried to not respond to him. And as the minister was about to leave, the demon says to Gilbert's wife, Grisel Wiley, "Grisel, put out the candle." And as I guess the minister is like, don't listen to him, like, he's trying to pull a fast one on us. And I guess she doesn't put out the candle, and the demon starts getting really pissed off that, like, now all of a sudden they're not talking back to him, they're not doing what he asks, and so he's saying, like, put out the candle, put out the candle, put out the candle, and he's doing it faster and more aggressively and louder until eventually his voice sounds like it's in their heads of, like, put out the candle. I guess eventually they were just so annoyed by him, which is what he wanted anyway, that they did put out the candle. And in a very anticlimactic ending, the demon, I guess, realized this was just his fate, that he would be, like, kind of a big eye roll for the family and nothing else was going to come from it. Once they put out the candle, he just said, "I'll trouble you no more."
Oh.
So I think he kind of gave up. He was like, the fun is over. Like, people are getting tired of me. So I guess I'm losing people's interest, so I'm gonna go away.
Oh my gosh, he was like, "No bread, you're not talking to me, I'm bored, I gotta go."
Yeah, exactly. I already cut up the fashionable hat, so there's nothing more I can do here. So he said, "I'll trouble you no more." So after this, the family did experience some more instances of violence, but I guess it started dying down. But it was still enough to freak Gilbert out, and he asked the minister later on, like, should I just move my family? What should I do? Which, like, at this point, Gilbert, like, you clearly don't want to move the family. Like, you've had a lot of time to have made this decision by now.
Yeah.
The ministers agree to help him again, and the activity does seem to die down for a little bit, but then new activity surfaces where the entity began hiding the family's food, particularly their meat, which to me is the meanest, most frustrating thing you could do. They would find meat, like, in the doorposts and in their clothes.
Yeah, that's also so, like, A, unsanitary, and B, like, if you don't find it soon enough, you probably find it because it starts smelling, so your house smells like rotting
Exactly.
meat. That's
the
awful.
only clothes you have without tears and rips in them smells like funky meat. Yeah.
Ugh.
Sometimes all their food went entirely missing and was never found again. And the food would literally sometimes even get snatched out of their hands or thrown at them when they were looking for it.
Oh, God.
The demon also started keeping them up at night with loud shuffling and growling and verbal threats of burning the house down. And after actually, like, threatening one time that he was gonna burn the house down, only a few nights later, one of the beds caught on fire.
Oh, shit.
Which, again, people think, like, oh, it could be a kid burning his own bed if this is, like, the story that he's been keeping with.
Yeah.
But eventually the activity did, maybe that one last fire was, like, the last real attempt at getting their attention, and it didn't work. Because after that, the activity did die down. It left the family alone for good, and the family ended up living there for many more years. And most obviously think that the demon was a hoax or one of the children or something. The only thing that's interesting is how something threw its voice that well, that I can think of. And the story, they say the story could have been completely made up or a real story that was enhanced for entertainment. So maybe it wasn't really a demon, but it just kind of became a story about a demon. They also think that George Sinclair could have written the story himself, since he intentionally was putting the story in a book to prove that God is real.
Oh, right. I forgot that this was, like, in a minerals textbook.
Yes, exactly. This is like the reward you get after finishing that really complicated chapter, you know?
Oh my God, question.
What?
Well, I know you said, so a lot of stories involve rock throwing, but he was a mineral scientist. A
mineral surveyor, coal person. Yes,
was that the connection?
Actually, I don't know, but that's so smart. Maybe he heard the story and he like didn't really believe in any of it, but then he heard about the rock throwing and he was like, that's something I relate to. And
Piqued
that
my
was like,
interest. What kind of rocks?
maybe that was his first inspiration with this story, where he was like, oh,
Mm.
rocks, you say? Okay.
I'll come take a look at your demonic rocks. That'll be interesting.
I did not even put that together, Eva. So smart.
Hmm.
One thing too, so he does say that he got this story from so this is going to be kind of like a breaking the fourth wall situation. But so George Sinclair wrote this story or put the story out about the Campbell family, right? And there was Gilbert and Tom and all them. He got this story specifically from the son, Tom, who like was getting harassed by this demon. I guess he actually knew them in real life. And Tom, I think one source said that he was actually living with George Sinclair for a time because he was a student at the school that George was a professor at.
Oh, wow.
And so I think maybe like they probably, I imagine, I'm totally making up the situation, but I imagine over like dinner and like you awkwardly live with a professor or like the chair of your department and you're trying to just like make up conversation, and maybe they found out that they had a common interest in like he liked the occult and demonology, and Tom was like, oh, I've got a story from my childhood you might be interested in.
Yeah.
And that might be where they clicked or something, but totally making that up. I'm totally guessing. But in some way, George Sinclair apparently inherited the story from Tom Campbell and then wrote the story about them to put into his next book.
Wow.
If that makes
got
sense.
It. Yeah.
So they think that either the story is completely fake, it was a boring story that got enhanced for entertainment, George Sinclair created it completely on his own in a way, or at least spiced it up so that it would prove that God exists, or they think that when Tom told him the story, he could have totally made it up to like impress his professor, or he could have been telling a more enhanced version of his childhood or told a faulty childhood memory version of the story. So
interesting.
There's a lot of what ifs on the accuracy. Something tells me it's not 100% true.
Yeah.
But I did want to say 2 fun facts. The location of the home, if you happen to be in this area, I guess the place is now known as Geist. It's Ghaist. Instead of, it's like ghost, but an AI instead of an O. Geist. And then HA'. I have no idea how to pronounce that properly, but that is allegedly the location of where the Campbell home used to be. There was like a whole website where someone who likes the story enough actually tried to like map out where all the locations were. It was very interesting. So the area of the home is Geist, and the well where they first heard the demon speak for the first time is now known as Deal's Well, which is DE'Il. Almost like, Del's Well, like devil maybe?
Oh.
It's devil, but an apostrophe instead of the V.
Oh, interesting.
So maybe it could be Devil's Well. And there's also a space in that area also called Campbell's Croft, which might be about the Campbell family.
Oh, interesting.
Anyway, if you live near there and you care about locations to my stories, you can go there and, soak it all up. And then the last fact that I have is that the beggar from the story from the very beginning, Alexander Agnew.
Oh, yeah.
He is also involved in local history in a different way, because not only was he the beggar in this story, but he was also known as the Jock of Broad, Scotland.
Huh.
And 2 years after he would have allegedly knocked on the door and been turned away and cursed the Campbell family, 2 years later he was hanged at Dumfries for blasphemy.
Oh.
Because I guess before he died, they asked him for the last time, is there a God? This was his response. He said, quote, I know no God, only salt, meal, and water. Which a lot of people...
Sorry.
What's that?
And rock.
And rock, yeah.
And mineral coal.
So I guess when the beggar, when he got hanged for blasphemy and his response was, I only know of salt, meal, and water, they tried to use that in the story, or people have tried to use that with the story and say that like he might have been the one harassing the family the whole time because all he wanted was salt, meal, and water when he came begging at the house.
Yeah.
And of course he would be the demon because he knows no God. He only knows like food and the things that will help him survive. It became like this weird additional allegory or this weird theory about like how he inspired the story from the beginning. I don't know. It just became a weird thing. But anyway, that is the
Oh,
story of the
huh.
Devil of Glenless.
Oh my gosh, Em, that's so interesting. Wait, I have a question. Did they think that, so they just thought that it was a story based on the beggar, or they thought that the beggar was actually the one
They,
kind of harassing them because of.
I think one of the theories is that the beggar might have been the person pulling the strings and been the
Oh,
demon the whole time,
got it.
or this was just fanciful writing that the beggar gave the author some inspiration, like some way to bookend the story of
Oh, I
like
see.
he could have just honestly been like a storytelling ploy in bookending of, oh, he started the story by harassing the family and then he ended up dying later because he knew no God or something. It just,
Oh, gotcha. Okay, gotcha.
who knows? It's just, he somehow got inserted into the story a lot of times when he was just like a homeless person who ended up dying of blasphemy. So I'm not too
Wow.
sure.
Oh my gosh, that's so that whole story was so interesting, Em. It feels like it was such a bookend too of like I forgot like about the beggar. I forgot about the that it was like a textbook from the beginning and all of
Yeah.
that came back.
At the end of the day, it's the most interesting textbook you could hope to ever find in like an antique store from the 1600s.
Oh, please God, if someone finds that textbook.
Please, if someone could actually find me like hydrostatic bodily fluids or whatever it was called, I don't remember.
Oh my
I
God.
want that book so bad just so I can see the demonic story inserted into the scientific pages.
Yes. Wait, that would be such a good present for Christine too, with all of her like, the like prescription that the like whiskey
Ugh.
prescription and then the witch
Wow,
thing that you gave us both.
Christine is not here, so we have full like potential to tell
That's true.
everybody everything we saw in her house because it blew both of our
Oh,
minds.
that's true. Oh, her house
Christine's
is so
house was
beautiful.
so pretty. It
It
was
is.
blew my freaking mind because I'd only seen what everyone on YouTube had seen, which was
Yeah.
her face in that little corner of that one room, and I knew nothing else about that house. And I guess she had kept forgetting that like I hadn't seen
Yeah.
her home before. But when we first got there, you and I were both literally jaw dropped.
Oh
I
yeah, we
was
were like, wow, this is like historic. It's like beautiful. Also, even just like panning out from the screen, like the YouTube screen, it's like
yes,
her podcast room is so nice. It's so
insane.
pretty. Yeah, yeah,
It was
yeah.
all pretty. Anyway,
Oh, it's
Christine, if you're
beautiful.
listening in your stupid, beautiful house, we wish we were there.
We're
So,
also haunting it. We are in your crawl spaces.
yeah, if you hear a bump upstairs, that was me.
That was
Oops.
us.
All right, tell me your second tale.
My second tale. Oh my gosh. Well, first, thank you. That was such a good story, and I loved it.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well,
Yeah.
I was like, what can I do for episode 250? And that was kind of the best I could come up with.
No, I.
Conjure up.
Oh, you conjured a story about a bread demon. I love
My
it.
favorite little gluten monster. So,
Gluten Monster. Oh my God. I love that. Okay.
Sesame Street, are you listening? I would like you to do a character called the Gluten Monster, and I would
Yep.
like to voice him and act him and eat all of the food he has to eat.
And yeah, as a character study, we would like all of the bread sent to us, pretty please. Okay, let me find those are not my notes. Where did they go? Uh-oh, just kidding, they're right here. Okay.
LOL. Can you imagine if you just didn't have no? You know what? I would be like, you know what, Eva? We're already doing. This is such a big ask. You could just not have done them. I'll understand.
I found them. Hooray. I'm actually okay, so these notes are especially great and fun, and I think I mentioned last time my trial crew friends that I
Hmm.
meet up with to listen to and watch all the true crime stuff. Um, so Ellen in particular, God bless, because Ellen, when she found out I was doing this, and I think Rachel might have like, God
Said
bless Rachel.
something.
Yeah, I think Rachel was like, "Hi, Ellen, ask for Eva if she needs help." Ellen was like, "Hey, do you need help or want help with notes?" And I was like,
Yes, please.
"Yes, please."
Truly, I feel like everyone does need to take a moment and appreciate like this isn't just like you popping on and like just committing an hour of your time or 2 hours of your time. Like it sounds like we're complaining about nothing, but to do research for these stories takes a long time, and for you to be able to come on and do 4 weeks of this is like you don't realize how helpful you're being, and
Oh.
everyone in the world should do a little clink and cheers for Eva, because
Aw.
it's very, very nice for you to. I totally understand why you would be asking other people for help. I would also like to ask other people for help, so I get it.
Oh, well, I appreciate it. And I was telling Em earlier, I have a whole new respect for both of you in terms of like, when we were touring, the first go round, and you both were doing like notes on planes, and all of that, like having to like cram it in. I just was like, oh my gosh, like, wow, you guys both did so much work.
Well, thank you. That's why we now have a scripted show, which, by the way, shout out, if there's any tickets
Yeah.
left to our tour, please come.
Oh my gosh, so excited about that. So yeah, oh my gosh, huge shout out to Ellen, because Ellen is like basically the one in Trial Crew who like will actually listen to court transcripts, will like she was into true crime before it was cool, before like all
Gotcha.
the hype of it. So she already had just written out a bunch of different stories, and so she was like, you can use these, I'm not using these. So
Wow.
God bless. Thank
my
you,
gosh.
Ellen.
Wow.
Woo, love all of you guys in Trial Crew. It just, as soon as she mentioned that, I was like, wow, I feel so much more like empowered to like know what to talk about. And it kind of reminded me too again of like, oh, I've always loved, I've always been interested in this kind of thing. And
yeah.
So especially the story in particular, because so I had initially heard this story on a really early My Favorite Murder episode, and then I mentioned it to Ellen, and Ellen was like, oh yeah, I know that story. And so we talked about it for like hours one time at Trial Crew. It was so cool. And then I just loved that was like one of hers on here, because I was like, oh my God, that I remember being so like mind blown by this case. So yeah, huge shout out to Ellen, huge shout out to Trial Crew, huge shout out to Rachel. Thanks everyone.
Thank you everyone who has made this possible in any way.
Yeah.
Thank you, My Favorite Murder, for initiating the conversation.
Truly, yeah. So my sources definitely are Ellen.
Mm-hmm.
I did take Ellen's notes, and I listened to the episode again. I read a bunch of articles. Actually, there was one LA Times article that was really interesting, so that was one of my sources. But yeah, I used Ellen's notes. I used My Favorite Murder episode 72 called Steven It Out. The LA Times article from 1991, Wikipedia, and Murderpedia.
Gotcha. Cool.
So, okay. As I say all of this without even saying what I am covering. So.
This is probably as frustrated as everyone is with me when I am so long-winded with all my whatever. Just what is it?
We're here. Okay. So this is the story of the Pillow Pyro.
The what now? The Pillow Pyro. So someone's going to set a pillow on fire? Is it the demon I was just talking about?
Correct, with some bread along the way.
Got it.
Okay, so the story starts in the 1980s. It's known as the Pillow Pyro case, and I was going to say it's in honor of fire season, because fires are always happening here, and it feels kind of ever.
Also, is it astrologically fire season? What is it right now?
Oh, that's a good point.
Oh, it's Libra season. Libras are not fire.
Oh, okay.
Oh, well, we tried.
No, we did try.
Okay.
Okay, so this does actually factor into the sort of the initial telling of the story, because the My Favorite Murder episode, Karen, having lived in Southern California during the time that this was happening, was really interesting, because she was like, yeah, I remember this. There were just fires everywhere.
Oh.
Like,
shit.
Just literally everywhere, and kind of in a bigger way, like a different way than they are now. Like, now we hear about like the big like Altoona fire, or the big like fire in Malibu, or those specific ones.
Yeah.
And then you hear about where they go and where they spread. This was more like fires being started, like brush fire here, brush fire there, in different places.
Weird. Okay.
Yeah. So it was costing millions of dollars in damages, and sadly cost 4 lives.
Okay.
So,
Got it.
So we start here with October 10th, 1984. In South Pasadena, a huge fire erupted, actually in a hardware store.
Oh.
Yeah, so the hardware store is called Ole's Home Center, and sadly in that fire is where the 4 people were killed.
Oh, shit. Okay.
Yeah, so also kind of in an homage to Christine's stories, this gets really sad really fast.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
I thought I could evade that during her maternity leave, and everyone would come here with happy crimes if that existed, but okay.
we got a little trick or treat one last time, but this one gets pretty sad pretty fast. So the 4 people that were killed were 2 employees, one 17-year-old employee, one 26-year-old mother of 2,
Oh, shit.
then a grandmother and her 2-year-old grandson.
God, wow. It got so much worse every time.
It's so
Jeez,
bad.
that's awful.
So bad.
Wow.
So in terms of like how big and intense that fire was in the hardware store, Karen's telling of it is from an old Forensics Files episode.
Okay.
And so in that Forensic Files episode, there's an interview with another store employee who did survive. Basically, he was saying like, yeah, I survived, but like it was so like just walls of fire.
I can't. I mean,
inside.
the trauma. I will never be able to wrap my head around. But knowing also that like you were in something where 4 people died, like
yeah, and also
like could have been you.
Yeah, and also he suffered from, trigger warning for burns, very intense burns to the point that he touched his arm and skin fell off.
Oh shit!
Like that
Oh my
kind of
god!
burn.
Wow! Holy crap!
So
Okay.
super not great. Obviously the fire department comes, they put out the blaze. The building is completely demolished. And then initially it's ruled an electrical fire. Is
Okay.
the initial like kind of the all the arson investigators and fire department are there the next couple days, and that's their initial ruling. But arson investigator John Orr arrives on the scene and takes a look around and says, "No way, you guys are wrong. This is arson."
Oh shit! Okay.
Yeah, and John Orr knows his shit. Like he's been at the Glendale Fire Department for 11 years. He's had a super illustrious career in fire rescue. He's been in the Air Force on the airplane crash and rescue fire team.
Whoa.
And then like quickly rose through the ranks to arson investigator in Glendale.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
And what's his name?
John Orr.
John Orr. Okay.
ORR. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So as Ellen puts it, he taught seminars, he wrote essays on firefighting, he had decades of experience under his belt.
Cool.
So everyone was like, okay, this is arson. So they started looking into it more. And they discovered that the fire was set using a homemade incendiary device that was made from a lit cigarette with 3 matches around it.
Oh.
All wrapped.
So it was like it wasn't like arson, like, oh, a cigarette caught something else on fire that caught, like, this was an intentional,
yes. It was
was its own little stick of fire.
Yeah, yes, exactly. It was,
wow.
So the lit cigarette had the 3 matches around it. It was wrapped in yellow writing paper, like a legal pad paper. And then all of that was rubber banded together and then thrown into the bedding section. So literally,
for fuck's sake. Okay, so
on fire.
I see now where the name comes from.
Yeah.
Got it. Okay.
And it's thought that like the way that like, as cigarettes go down, that's when the match is lit, and then it gave the person time to like throw it and leave. So it's thought that person wasn't just like throwing it and then being there when it happened. It
also makes me think the person, like, this was not his first time committing arson. If he already kind of like, oh well, if I do this, the fire will burn this amount of time, and I can. It feels like it was like practiced, or at least not, your first fire.
Very thought through for sure. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So the Wikipedia article that I read about it said that this created what's called, quote, flashover, which means that the fire basically consumes like everything that's combustible lights on fire like the same time instead of like spreading like fire usually does. It just is immediately like up, and that's why there were like just like walls of fire.
Okay, got it.
So wild. So then we kind of cut to a couple years later in January of 1987. There's an arson investigators convention in Fresno, and basically it becomes a little bit like sort of arousing suspicion because there are a bunch of fires that break out around this convention area.
Okay.
Up in Bakersfield and Tulare. So not quite the same area, but still in California and sort of in the general vicinity.
Yeah.
And they also start looking like arson. So we have another character here. So Bakersfield Fire Captain Marvin G. Casey starts looking into it more. And here's where things get kind of wild, like a little more wild. So he starts connecting the dots on the map and is like, wait a minute. A ton of these fires are starting in the same areas as fire and arson conventions, like the one in Fresno.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so now I'm going to take you
Wow.
on a journey involving fingerprints.
Please do. Oh my god. Also, side note, John Orr and Marvin G. Casey
I
sound
know.
like they were fucking meant to be firemen.
Well, and also I feel like I was like so involved in that story the last story I did in like the 1950s, and I feel like these names still are very like, they feel like from a different time almost. I don't know why.
It's kind of wild. I mean, it's such like a stupid thing to say, but like it really is wild how some names just sound like they were meant for a decade or a profession or
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
anyway, sorry. Yes, please take me on this fingerprint journey.
Well, no, I was gonna say it does sound, it's kind of like the way that some names, like I feel like every time someone says the name of like their high school rival or their high school
Mhm.
like boyfriend, I'm like, yeah, that's a high school name. Even though
Yes,
that person
exactly.
is still walking around with that name.
I understand. Like, there's certain, and what's interesting is my two rhyme, but Chelsea or Kelsey. If you're a Chelsea or Kelsey, you are just perpetually in high school in my mind. Like, there's
Yep.
no,
Yeah.
there's you won't graduate. Like, it's not because you're not capable, but because you were stuck in time.
For sure. Oh, for sure. Kelsey's, I've never known a Kelsey outside of high school.
Yeah,
That's
I've never
my
met one. I've never met one.
Tell us, say hi to us, Kelsey's. We want to know them in real life.
Are you okay? You've been in high school for like 10 years, girl. It's okay.
Okay, so on the fingerprint journey, our boy Captain Casey, so he's the captain of the that's John Orr. He's the captain of
Bakersfield.
the Bakersfield. Yes, thank you.
Yeah.
So he comes up with a plan, and he's like, "Hey, so if I think that this person is on the inside of the fire department, or at least someone that was maybe at the conventions, why don't I just, so he had a fingerprint from one of the fires in his area. He had a fingerprint
Oh
on
my god.
a piece of notebook paper. So he was like,
So smart.
but his thought was like, oh, we'll just run this print against everyone in the fire department in, this area in California. Like, have that idea. Why don't we do that? And his higher ups are like, no, thank you.
Oh.
Yeah, they're kind of like, well, I think mostly what it was like, you're crazy. Like, why would someone who has sworn to like, why would someone do the exact opposite thing that
Right.
they are supposed to be doing? Why would someone in the fire department be setting these fires? That seems really
silly.
Right, far-fetched.
Very
Exactly.
silly, yeah.
Yeah, so he's like, all
But I
right.
guess, I mean, think about those times where like there was I forget what his name was. He stayed at the Cecil Hotel for a while. He was the guy who was an investigative reporter, and he was reporting on his
Yes,
own crimes.
right.
So
Yeah, it definitely happens.
it's happened. Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like people are drawn to things for a lot of different reasons, and yeah, that could be it for a lot of people. So,
Yeah.
not going to spoil anything yet, but another couple years go by, so he's not given any leeway to do that, and so a couple years go by, still with more fires set everywhere, including one that breaks out near another conference, this time near Monterey, California.
Okay.
So this time Casey is like, well, I'm definitely right. And like,
right, like he's like, I already had a hunch and this just confirmed it.
Yeah, he's like, I don't really care what anyone says, except I need them to like okay me to do some things because this is clearly happening. So what he does, instead of like, to kind of skirt the issue that happened last time, he actually makes a list, since it was like, okay, this conference and that other conference. He was like, who was at both conferences? So he pulls the lists of the people that were at both conferences, and he comes up with 10 people, like the names for 10 people. So he finally is able, since he has this list of 10 people, maybe that's easier. He goes to the higher ups again, and they're like, fine, fingerprint those 10 people, see what happens. And nothing happens.
What?
Nothing
I really
back.
thought that was a shoo-in situation. I'm sure he did too.
I know.
I really thought like, wow, this story is going to end really fast. Like,
I know. Yeah.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Well, because it's so clever. It's like you want it to work because it's like, oh, you did all this. You did this work. You thought it through.
And it seems so. Well, I mean, here I am as like an armchair expert of fucking nothing, but like it seems so easy of like, oh, it's happening in all these places where you have a log of people, like that tracks. So
yeah, no, for sure. So sadly, everyone on that list is cleared of suspicion.
Mm.
So we jump in time again. This is kind of like a little hopper along a timeline here.
Nice.
So we jump again to the 1990s, to late 1990, early 1991,
Okay.
when a suspiciously big series of fires breaks out in the LA area now, like back
Oh.
to LA.
So this whole time we haven't been able to find this person and there's still fires
Mm-mm.
going on? Or
Yeah.
has... Oh, wow. So there wasn't even like a gap of time where there wasn't fire.
Oh, yeah, sorry. These are just like the bigger fires that are happening, but throughout the span from like 1984 to like, I
Oh
forget
my
the end date,
God.
but I'll say it at the end.
So this person's just getting away with it for years.
Yeah, yeah,
Oh
and
my
it's just
gosh.
like fires it's still everywhere, and these are just the bigger series of fires that people are like
Wow.
able to get more clues from and
These are the most
investigate.
notable ones.
Yeah, exactly. And
Wow.
so basically, now that it's back in LA and there's a big series of fires, the LA Fire Department starts a task force, which is where the Pillow Pyro name comes in because it was sort of nicknamed the Pillow Pyro Task Force through the Los Angeles Fire Department.
Great name.
Yeah. So then in 1991, so the task force has been going for a little bit. The task force is looking into like obviously all the throughout the years of all these fires, and they get wind of Casey's initial theory, and they're like, "Oh wait, okay, let's look into that finally."
So they're like retesting the original theory from the 80s.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
So they hear about it, and basically this guy, one of the guys on this task force, Tom Campuzano, he actually even meets with Casey because he hears tell of Casey and his theory, and he's like, "Oh, I think he's onto something. I want to meet with him."
Ah, okay.
Yeah, and so Tom Campuzano, not to be confused with poor demonically demonic child.
That Tom who's also involved in fires.
Oh,
Jeez.
you know, when you said the bed was setting on fire, I was like, oh, what a segue into the story too.
Hey, when you talked about your bread candle and all of a sudden bread showed up in my notes, what a weirdly synchronized. Oh my God, synchronized day. Also, what a mess of a day.
Listen, we got the weird weather happening. It's been all like cloudy and rainy and weird, so
I know, Eva, we haven't even talked about, that's why I drink today. The weather is so gloomy, and y'all know I love a gloomy day.
I know. It's nice and October vibesy, and then like we were just talking about that rainstorm the other day too that like really threw us both off.
I literally called Eva in the middle of the night and I was like, "Are you okay?" I thought you had died. I don't know what was there was something about the way that the sky opened up and the lightning hit where I was like, someone must be dead. There's just no way.
It's so eerie here. And I think I said back like, "Oh, I'm fine. I'm just locking every single door in my girlfriend's home because I'm worried that we're going to get murdered."
It really is a freaky experience it sounds so stupid because we both grew up on the East Coast. We know what rain is,
Yeah.
but like moving here and like getting rain like once a year, it becomes a really jarring experience. You're just like, oh my God, what was that? What was that?
So wild. Yeah, we've become soft on rain.
Soft on rain, absolutely.
Okay, so Tom meets with Casey and is like, "Hey, you're onto something. Let's talk." And actually, Casey ends up giving him that fingerprint from the initial.
Oh, he was like, please finish what I started.
Exactly. Yeah. He's like, now that these fires are in LA, there's more, chance for clues where you are. So you take this fingerprint, run with it, see what you can find. Which is funny. Like, I just realized this. I didn't think about this when I was doing this initially. I guess, but I don't know. It's like funny thinking about like Casey's original theory was that there was someone on the inside and he's passing over evidence to someone on the inside. I wonder if he had like misgivings about that.
Yeah, like what if the one person that got away with it is the one you're handing the information to?
Right. Yeah, I wonder if there was something that made him trust Tom and the task force more than most.
If I were him, I would have never even thought about it until like 3 days later in the car, and I would have been like, what?
Oh no.
I would have been like, oh no.
Because it actually is said that Casey's theory was not only that it was someone on the inside, but also that it was someone specifically in LA. So this guy was in LA too. Anyway. Yeah. There must have been something that cleared Tom to Casey because he did pass over the fingerprint.
I guess so.
And so in 1991, with better technology and obviously people believing him, and also Karen mentioned in the My Favorite Murder episode that there had potentially been a lab mix-up, like a lab error the first time the prints were run. So Tom runs these prints again, this time against all applicants, all former applicants for all law enforcement, I believe in the area, and it gets a match.
Wow.
So, do you have any guesses who the match is?
Oh, it's well, that means it's a character we've
It is.
discussed. Oh man. Is it Captain Casey himself?
You would think, because I did talk about him more, but no, it's the other person I talked about at the very beginning.
John Orr?
It's John Orr.
What?
Yeah. The first person on the scene of that.
The guy who the guy who literally said, "Oh, it was definitely arson, not an electric fire." The guy who could have cleared it as an electric fire and gotten away with it.
Yes.
There's that shitty narcissism.
Yes.
You can't catch me bullshit again. Okay.
No, exactly. I bet you it was that thing, and I think like Karen and Georgia kind of mentioned this a little bit too. That thing of like, right, like a coming back to the scene of the crime and being like, "No, I need you to know how,
Yeah. I need you to know
did.
that someone intentionally wanted to do this and hurt these people. Like,
yeah, you're not getting it. Like, understand."
well, Christine recently just covered somebody who was literally got away with it, but the only reason he didn't get away with it was because he kept feeding them like clues. And there was some that feels like half of her stories where the murderer just is so frantically like, it's someone and you don't know who it is, but it's right here.
No,
and
exactly.
That's how it feels. It's like, are you kidding me? Like, you had the authority. You were the only one with the authority who could have said, "Oh, ignore it," and you chose for people to get curious about it.
Right. You probably would. I mean, he did get away with it for
years,
almost a decade, like so long.
I always wonder about those people where they're involved in a crime and they think they get away, and then they find out the technology's getting better, and then they're like, uh-oh, what did you think was going to happen? Of course, eventually we'll have something that can help us figure out something we couldn't figure out before.
Yeah, no, for sure. Yeah, and I wonder how much of that plays into too that idea of it does seem like there's such a spectrum of criminal intent, maybe, of people that want to do it and never get caught and just keep doing it, and then people who want the notoriety for it but obviously don't want the consequences of it.
Yeah,
it's so interesting. So yeah, the fingerprint came back. John Orr, arson investigator for the Glendale Fire Department.
Wow.
Which obviously is the big crux of this case, because I remember hearing that and being like, what the fuck? Oh my god, it's so wild.
Yeah. Wow. Okay.
Yeah. So John Orr also, as I said earlier, was super well respected too. He was a total definitely a pillar of the community. He was the arson investigator. He also was neighboring. Ellen put this. This is her wording here. Other neighboring fire departments would send their firefighters to him for he literally taught classes on I
mean, again, this gives me the vibe of a narcissist where he knows he's the man, and people go to him because he's the man in power, and so of course the man could get away with something like this, even if he's pulling this tugging on the string in front of you of who could it be?
And feeling entitled to keep doing those things. He was teaching, I think it was the LA Times article that mentioned this, that he was teaching his classes on firefighting and arson investigation, all of that, right up until the point where they found out it was him.
God.
Right up until.
Wow. Okay.
So, wild times. So once the fingerprint matched, they obviously were like, wow, fuck, we need to get him off the streets because before another fire starts and more people die. But this was easier said than done, because while they had the fingerprint, for whatever reason, they did want more evidence before they arrested him. So I think it's at this point, the ATF, the alcohol and tobacco and firearms and explosives, that branch of the FBI, I believe, of the government, basically gets involved at some point, and I think it's right here. It was kind of unclear in a couple of the different sources, but they get involved because they actually are the ones who start surveilling and tracking him. So they put a tracker, a GPS tracker on his car, which it was funny because when I first read this, I was like, oh yeah, a GPS tracker, and then I read that so the next bullet point is that he found the tracker.
Oh shit.
But it's 1991, and so who really knows what that looks like or is, and who, it's a little bit newer of a thing.
I'm imagining it's literally a black thing that's like beeping red. It's like a very obvious pulsating tracking light from a movie.
Okay, so you're probably exactly correct because he thinks it's a bomb. Like that's his first thought is like,
Shut up.
yeah, he thinks it's a bomb on his car. And when I talked to Ellen, when I told her I was doing the story, that was the point that she was like, that's my favorite part of the story. Or like she basically was like, that's the wildest part of the story is that basically there are so many wild parts of the story, but he thinks it's a bomb. He calls into a bomb expert basically, and
Oh
then
my God.
they basically find out that he is I don't know the exact like connections right there, but basically they find out that he is talking to a bomb expert, and so they're trying to be like, oh my God, let's tell him some bullshit about how to dismantle it and like
Well, I
go with
imagine,
it.
I don't know how, I feel like a bomb department wouldn't have been like, well, maybe, or I don't know if like the, whatever the right word is for bombs and explosives and all that, but I'm sure they have like an easy connection to the police, right? So like
Yeah,
maybe, I don't know. I imagine he like called maybe the police first and then they called the
maybe.
bomb place, or they called the bomb place and they checked with the cops, like to say like, oh, we have a bomb. We need to call the police. And the police were like, no, no, no. Like that's actually like our tracker. Like,
Yeah, yeah. Let's actually send you to someone that you don't know is the ATF, but we're gonna send you
right.
to the person who put that on your
They,
car.
it was like a three-way call and the person
Yeah.
on hold didn't realize that they were now conspiring together.
Mm-hmm.
Also, like I love, my favorite part of the story is, I also think this is my favorite part, but only because like, wow, technology has changed so much where he found something on his car and it was literally just a GPS device
It was like a
and he thought it
Garmin.
was a bomb and he
Yeah.
was like head of like, he was like in charge of a whole group of, like he should have known more than other people what a GPS device looked like in my mind. And
Right.
he was like, what is this?
He was
It
like, how
must
do
be a bomb.
I know exactly? Yeah. And then they were like basically telling him like, oh, here's how you dismantle it. And like basically I think ended up taking that one off. But yeah, basically like got away. Like the ATF got away with, he didn't figure out that that was a GPS at all, that they were onto him. And it did say in another article that they were able to track him. So they had one that was in some like another part of his car, and then they had a smaller one that was somewhere like it sounded like maybe in the like under the hood or like in the dash somewhere. So it sounded like they had another one, but that doesn't really play in a ton more except in this next part, which I think might be one of my favorite parts of the story, which is that, so I'm not sure exactly how soon after this was, but after the tracker situation, and they're like, phew, but also we still need some more evidence on him. A fire breaks out on the Warner Brothers lot on the set of a TV show.
What?
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
So wild.
I'm actually going there this weekend. I'm going there on Saturday.
Are you really? Are you doing the tour?
Yeah. Yes, I am doing the tour, but I have done it. The worst part about having a tourist attraction 10 minutes from you that you actually love is I've done the tour so many times. I don't really need the tour. I just want to,
Yeah.
want to go stare at it, you know? So.
Yeah. Well, that's actually, we just drove by because Rachel used to and still does work for Warner Brothers. And so we were driving by like her gate where she like used to go into work before COVID, and I was like,
So
oh my
crazy.
God, that's the same gate that like, you know, a friend of mine who works on Ellen like let us in once to, you know, go see we went to a Conan taping. That's what we did. That was like super fun too.
My favorite, when I used to work on the CBS lot, they had like some gate that like secretly opened up to like Chipotle, and I was like, oh, I can get into this.
Like a secret entrance.
I know.
Yeah. So on the WB lot, we don't know what TV show it was, but it was a set of a TV show. And it is like, you know, like a lot of us that know that have been on lots before, there is a fire department on lots, which Karen mentions too. So it was that, I'm assuming, that fire department that put out that fire.
Sure.
But the local fire department was called as well. And when John Orr got his call, they made sure to give him the wrong address and not say the WB lot.
Genius.
But he showed up at the WB lot anyway.
Gotcha.
Literally, the next bullet point in my notes is, so they were like, hi, gotcha.
Yeah, truly. Yep.
Big time gotcha. So,
wow.
John Orr was arrested in December of 1991, weirdly the same day that a new city fire chief was named.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, so his name was Richard Hinz, Hinz. And this is where this LA Times article, this LA Times article I read was really interesting. It was actually written 2 days after he was arrested. And it was like super interesting because like it really put a big emphasis on like some of the context of what was happening at the time and how it affected the fire department employees at the time.
Yeah.
And this article made a good point that was saying, like, this would have been a celebratory day for this person, for Richard Hines, but he ended up having to basically spend all of his time then working on, like, helping the morale of his firefighters and department.
Sure.
Because
also, like, having to, like, doubly learn their trust, gain their trust of, like,
Yeah.
yo, I'm not gonna set things on fire. Like,
yeah, lots of people, some people might, but I'm not.
Yeah.
Not me. No, that was it too. The article was saying that he had to spend a lot of time, like, defending the department as well. I mean, basically being like, well, it was this one person. We don't think it was more people, but we know this is, like, a huge breach in trust. So there are a lot of, I had a couple quotes here that I thought were really interesting. These are all from the LA Times article. Suspected arsonist John L. Orr was regarded as a mentor and sage by many of his firefighting colleagues, a veteran arson investigator called upon by fire officials across Southern California who were stumped by a tough case. So he was, like, the guy that people went to be like,
yeah.
hi, help us.
It's like having your idol. I mean, I imagine in the fire department, everyone's got, like, a favorite firefighter. Like, it's like,
Yeah.
I imagine you've got, like, your little ranks of, like, oh, he's the coolest one.
No, that's
imagine,
such a
like,
good point. Yeah.
your idol, like, being the reason that people have died, you know?
Yeah, no, for sure. It's so true. Like, any industry, even if it's not in your same industry, but especially if it is something that you personally do and you look up to that person.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's really, really tough. Let's see, where was it? I also found this other quote that I liked because it was sad and, like, also kind of went to how just how much they all were so ingrained in, like, the thought process of fires and what it was, because basically this let's see, Mario Vasquez, so this is all from the LA Times article as well. Mario Vasquez, a Glendale fire captain and spokesman for the 165-member Glendale Firefighters Association, said the allegations against Orr caught everyone by surprise. Some of the guys told me they had trouble sleeping last night because they were thinking about this. He said the news was so explosive that it's like an internal backdraft.
Oh, shit.
Which then
Yeah.
the article goes on to say he was referring to a smoke blast that erupts in some building fires.
Right. Yes.
Yeah. It also is very, like, I thought that quote was really, you know, it is really interesting because it shows that they're, you know, always relating to the fight. Like, they're so ingrained in fighting fires that was such an impactful thing for them. And then they were even using metaphors about fighting fires to talk about it too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So that was really kind of sad to, like, hear about all the people that were so, you know, brought down by it. So a little more about John Orr. He was married and had 2 kids from a previous marriage. He actually lived in Eagle Rock and had gone to Eagle Rock High School and Glendale Community College, which is another site. The Glendale Community College area is another site where there was, like, one of the biggest fires that was in that time frame. And I think even in California, like, Southern California history, it was, like, one of the biggest fires.
Wow. Okay.
So he kind of had that sometimes that, like, criminal trope of having wanted to be a cop and not making it. So he passed every test except the mental exam.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, which
that tells you something, I guess.
Yeah, not great. And some people, especially some ATF officers, view him as one of the worst arsonists in the 20th century. ATF officers have guessed that he set around 2,000 fires between 1984 and 1991, but other sources put it closer to 10,000 fires.
Holy 10,000 fires?
Yeah. Anywhere between.
What?
Yeah. He was
and
just
what did they
lighten them up?
Suggest, like what was the first number you said before 10,000?
Oh,
how many fires he's done?
2,000.
That's still so many.
It's still so many. Yeah.
Wow.
This part really got me. This was from Ellen's notes. After he was arrested, brush fires in the Glendale area specifically and surrounding foothills decreased by over 90%.
Holy shit.
90%.
Wow. Oh my God.
Yeah.
Wow. Oh my God.
Like,
that's
all the fires.
Insane. Literally, like, we just became basically fireless. Wow.
Yes. Almost all the fires were him. Every single fire. So
Like
wild.
what? So then at that point, it's like I mean, again, I don't think I can't totally think like I am that kind of narcissist criminal mindset of like, oh well, I'm doing this because I really want to make a name for myself. It's like you've already done it, buddy. Like,
Yeah.
why are you still doing this? Like, what you need
Yeah.
to be 99% of the fires? Like, what is the deal here?
Yeah, that's a really good point because then at what point is that like more of like a compulsion that he just couldn't
Yeah, it
stop
feels
himself
like
from doing or
I feel like if you're setting 10,000 fires, like that has to be a compulsion, right?
right, yeah,
It
because
feels like it.
it definitely feels like more than just, initially when, it's him showing up on the scene of the hardware store fire and
Yeah,
being like, "Hey, this is arson. I didn't do it," but,
right.
type thing, but it definitely feels that many seems much more.
Like there's a bigger mental issue there.
Yeah, for sure. And there's like little bits of that a little bit later down that I'll talk about, but yeah, for the most part, there's not a ton else that we know about it.
Wow.
Because throughout his trial, so here's the part about his trial. Throughout all of it, he was kept saying he was maintained his innocence,
Oh,
that this was
okay.
not him. Yeah, he was indicted with both state and federal charges for the fires and the murders separately. He pled not guilty and even turned down a plea deal. So early on in the trial process, I think it was it must have been the prosecution actually had it was interesting because I feel like for the most part you hear that prosecution doesn't want to put the death penalty on because they don't think it'll get a conviction because people don't want to vote for the death penalty.
Mhm.
But in this case, the Wikipedia article was saying that the prosecution had put the death penalty on this case because they wanted to make sure he never got out. So
Okay, got
they
it.
were kind of upping it in that way, it sounded like. But so they took a plea deal to him to say, like, hi, if you would just admit to every fire you've set since you were a child, like any fire all the time, um, and you agree to life in prison with no parole, we'll take the death penalty
Okay.
off the table. And he turned that down. He was like, no, I'm innocent.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So he was convicted in 1993 on the arson charges and 1998 for the murder charges. Yeah, again, he's maintained his innocence ever since. But aside from everything else, oh, sorry, I actually didn't write this part down, but I wanted to mention it. Basically, the Wikipedia article was saying that he is not on any prison registries or like
Oh.
prison inmate registries. So they think he's actually being held under an alias in
Oh.
prison, which
Interesting.
was really interesting. Yeah, because I didn't know they did that.
I had no clue. I feel
Yeah.
like there's a lot of people not to compare crimes here, but I feel like there's a lot of other hardened criminals with infamous pasts that should have
Yeah.
aliases in jail.
Right, exactly. And like who gets that? Because is that
Yeah, is
like a
it
luxury or like to
yeah, exactly, cuz like you were the chief of something? Do like
maybe.
cuz
Yeah.
I would understand it maybe if you were like the chief of police and did something like this and there's a lot of people you arrested going into
Oh,
that you're going to
right.
see in jail. Like I
Yeah.
feel like maybe a fireman wouldn't have to worry as much about that. I don't know.
Yeah, it's unclear. Yeah. So aside from that, he was put in prison for life. The death penalty was taken. He no longer is under the death penalty. But aside from everything else that pointed to his guilt, when they arrested him, they found a manuscript.
Oh my god. Okay.
Do you want to guess what his novel's about?
It was a threat level midnight starring Michael Scarn, Agent Michael Scarn.
Okay, basically though,
No.
it was all about arson. Like it was all about him. I mean, it wasn't him. The character's name I think was Aaron Stiles. The novel was called Point of Origin, and the main character sets massive fires all around the area, killing a couple people, including a child whose name is the same as the child that was
Oh, for fuck's
killed.
sake.
Like the specifics of the manuscript to the specifics
It
of
was basically his diary.
yeah, yeah. And actually, I think that's exactly what Karen said too, or Georgia. They were like he basically wrote this exact same like beat by beat down. It seems like, and like more disturbingly, he also wrote down like things that were not corroborated. Like he had never spoken on it. No one had ever like caught him doing this. But the character also like would get erections watching the fires. Like couldn't get an
Um.
erection until he set a fire.
So he. So this was that makes more sense why there was like if he was doing 10,000 of them,
Hmm.
and I was like, oh, it feels like there's something else going on there. It's like a sexual compulsion.
Exactly. Yeah. Ellen wrote in her notes that it was like it was likened to like a mistress, like his,
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
like love of fires, the character,
Oh,
and also,
interesting.
yeah, the person that seems to be behind it all.
Uh-huh, yeah.
So there's actually also a movie called Point of Origin that is about this exact situation. It's an HBO movie from 2002, starring Ray Liotta as John Orr, but that was written by an actual screenwriter and, from what we know, not an arsonist.
Gotcha. Sure. That would be a real plot twist, though.
Oh my god, the plot twists continue. The screenwriter is
It just
actually an
keeps
arsonist
going
too.
up and up and up.
Yep.
Yeah.
So it's been covered by a lot of different TV shows, podcasts, movies, and books, including one that I definitely want to read, which is by a true crime writer who collaborated with John Orr's daughter, Lori Kovac. The book is called Burned. And it's so interesting because she was on his side, it seems like, originally, where she testified on his behalf in the trials. But it was also to prevent him from getting the death penalty. So it might have also been kind of like at the time, maybe she was like, I just don't want to get the death penalty. But it does seem like years later, she did eventually come to realize how guilty he was. And she cut off all contact with him and wrote this book with this true crime
Wow.
author. There's also a podcast called Firebug that I haven't listened to, but am putting it on the list because they actually include excerpts from his book, which
Oh,
I
wow.
feel like would be an interesting
Sure. Yeah, of
read
course.
to hear. But that is the story of John Orr and the Pillow Pyro.
Wow. Well done, Eva. But talk about a twist. I guess I was a baby when I guess he got found out, because I was gonna say, why don't I remember this? But I wasn't thinking about this kind of stuff then. Wow. Yeah, I would be interested to go back and listen to the My Favorite Murder episode of it to see like what was going on at the time and what Karen was experiencing.
Yeah.
I mean, like, I don't know what her big thing would be, but usually like my version of like, oh, I have memories of this experience was always the DC sniper for me. So I wonder,
that's
like,
right. Yeah.
in LA, what maybe this was her version of that, of like, oh, like I know all about that. I heard about it all the time.
Yeah.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, it definitely seemed like it. And it seemed like such a different, like interesting but different version of kind of what is happening now because of, climate change with all of the
Right.
extra big fires that we're experiencing now, a number of years later. Oh God.
Can you imagine if one day we found out that 90% of all the fires we're dealing with is a different fire chief?
Right. Well, that's like what it seemed like,
So
of like
wild.
at the time, who knows if they were like also thinking like, oh my God, is like they just didn't know,
Right.
It's like
Yeah.
also climate change too, like all the different things. Yeah, but wow, that was definitely something that I thought was really interesting to and like I was thinking back a couple years too to one of the big fires that I remember at the time I was working on the Disney lot, and as I was driving out you could see like the like kind of iconic like Disney buildings, and then behind it it was one of the
The fire skies.
Yeah, just the fire skies.
Was that like 2015, 2016-ish?
It was, yeah.
I remember that was my first fire sky I ever saw.
Was
And
it?
I had just moved here and I was like, what's going on? I was like, literally, for people who haven't seen, I don't know if there's like a different word, but usually I just say fire sky and anyone in LA knows what I'm talking about.
Yeah.
But if you haven't seen one before, it really looks like the apocalypse is coming. Like
It does, yeah.
the entire sky, think of like the brightest blue you have ever seen, that vibrant of like solid orange, like neon orange, and then all the clouds are completely like black and brown, and like that was a crazy time because anywhere you drove there was some of the fire sky was somewhere, or like you could drive from one area and see like the prettiest blue sky, and 10 minutes down the road all of a sudden you're under like this crazy orange brown cloud situation.
Yeah,
it looked like literal fire was in the sky. It was the 100%. Scariest thing.
Yeah, and like it happened a few times over quarantine too, I feel like, where the sky just turned like, and almost like sometimes orangey, like there's so much going on. It's really scary. Like,
yeah, I feel like, what's so funny is when we were just talking about how rain now freaks us out.
True,
the last few times there's been I don't think we've realized like how many times this has overlapped, but in the last couple of years, anytime there's been like a huge rainstorm, you and I have either been together and
We
freaked
have.
out
Yeah.
or called each other afterwards
Yeah.
and been like, are you okay? Like, I'm freaking out right now.
Yeah.
It's so weird that we like turned in our rain card for a fire sky card, and now when the sky looks like it's literally in flames, I'm like, whatever, it's a
Yeah,
normal day.
I'll be fine.
But
Yeah.
a little drizzle and I'm like out for the count. So
100%. It's funny how it can just flip in your mind in terms of, I guess, just what you're used to, or like I feel like you made a good point the other day too of like who knows what, like because it never rains here, like what it kicks up in terms
I
of
feel
like
like chemically
dust
there's
and
something in the
yeah.
some sort of it feels like there's something different in the air that happens when it rains now, where like I like feel this like existential dread. But when
Yeah.
there's a fire sky and it's literally snowing ash on my car, I'm fine,
Yeah.
like
Yeah. Yeah. Oh God, that's true. Imagine how much ash would have been, because that like seems somewhat normal too, that I've kind of come to just be like, oh yeah, that just comes with living here sometimes.
that just
that
happens.
it
Well,
just
the first time I
happens.
saw a fire sky, I was like, oh my God, is it snowing? And everyone was like, do not touch it. It is
No.
literal ash.
Yeah. Yeah.
Anyway, just another reason for you to not visit America if if you don't have fire skies where you are.
Gosh, truly.
Anyway, thank you so much, Eva, for coming on. I appreciate
Oh my gosh.
us bonding in bad weather and
Yeah.
watching me open my little coffin man
Oh,
and
love
um.
it.
But I hope everyone is doing well. It's about to be Thanksgiving, right?
Oh my gosh, it is. Yeah, this comes out. Oh my gosh, I meant to look it up. I think it's like November. Wait, this one comes out the 21st, so the week of Thanksgiving.
Holy shit. Well, I hope everyone's having a great Thanksgiving. Where do you know
Yeah.
where you'll be at for Thanksgiving, Eva?
You know, I actually don't. I am right now thinking I might actually, Rachel invited me to go home and see her family, so I might go see her
Oh, that's
mom.
precious.
Yeah.
A little gay turkey day.
Yeah, exactly.
I love it. I will be back. Since last year we had you and I had Thanksgiving
We
together
did.
last
Yeah,
year
yeah.
because we were quarantine buddies.
Yeah.
So I missed out on my regular trip back to Seattle to see my family, so I'm going to be there.
Right.
I think Allison is. I mean, it's still early. I don't know what the official plans are, but Allison said she might be coming with me this year.
Oh,
So the
amazing.
first time I won't be alone traveling to Seattle.
Oh, that's so fun.
So whatever y'all have planned, I hope things are going well, and I hope you
Yeah.
enjoy getting nice and round and have big bellies full of yummy food, and
Yep.
don't even feel bad about it. Just
No.
embrace the experience,
Yes.
and I hope everyone has fun and a happy Turkey Day.
Yeah.
And
That's
why
we
drink?